Yeah.
Forced.
I am not having any effect here.
It's spring.
I get no respect.
It's March. It's spring. That's something.
All right, I think
So we can make the crowd bigger.
we've got a quorum. Ms. Polly, will you check to make sure?
Absolutely. Roll call for Wednesday, March 2nd, meeting of the Arbor DDA. Jim Warren.
Here.
Newton Clark. Gus Collins.
Here.
Bob Gunzel.
Here.
Lee Gunn. Here. Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heathja.
Here.
John Lowenstein.
Here.
John Mowat.
Here.
Keith Dorr.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. Welcome to the DDA March meeting. Our first item of business is our audience participation. Is there anyone who would like to address us for 4 minutes from the audience? No one, okay. So we will go right into our reports from city boards and commissions. First we have Ray Detter from the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council.
Last night, the Citizens Advisory Council was largely devoted to a discussion of transportation and the work of the Outreach Panhandling Task Force appointed by the mayor and by the city council. And we started with a consideration of the latest plans for the new Blake Transit Center. Both Susan and I sit on that group that is planning the Blake Transit Center. And the CAC is pleased with changes that have been made in the improved design with plans for better customer amenities at the location and security, as well as the appearance and traffic flow, including a pedestrian corridor that will run from 4th Avenue to 5th Avenue, directly across from the entry to Library Lane and the future entry to the Ann Arbor District Library. We are promised a well-designed, LEED Platinum, top-notch transit center in the downtown, which we hope will be constructed with a foundation, and that may be up to you, permitting future development of air rights above. We think this is a great location for area planning. We know there are emerging plans to develop a structure on the parking lot behind the federal building. Parking will be below the new building that would be placed on that site, and the entry will be down the ramp, the 5th Avenue ramp, that leads into the underground parking structure on the library site. The old YMCA, we also know, will one day be developed, and we hope that will be for mixed use, hopefully some residential in it, and might even be connected on the upper floors to the Blake Transit Center. Members of the CAC strongly support the development, as you know, of a mixed-use high-rise structure and plaza across the street on the top of the underground parking structure. And our hope is that Blake will eventually be a real transit center, not just a bus station, with connections in the future, we hope, to Greyhound, U of M Blue Buses, a revived link, and eventually a future connector that relates not only to the proposed Fuller Road Transit Center, but to the Ann Arbor Railroad line. Such plans are not yet included for Blake, and of course are much into the future, but we hope to make them happen, and we are also, we hope to move ahead with AATA's countywide transit master plan. The second item that we spent a lot of time discussing was the Outreach Panhandling Task Force, and we think it's done an excellent job identifying problems and also proposing solutions to support people who need help in Ann Arbor, as well as what is perceived to be an increasing city panhandling problem, which seems to be common to a lot of cities throughout the nation at this time. With the slogan now of "Have a Heart, Give Smart," which they're very happy about, we'll attempt to, the task force is attempting to promote giving to agencies that support people who are homeless. Panhandlers, by the way, are generally not homeless, or help those who have substance abuse problems. At the same time, it will provide information to downtown businesses and to panhandlers themselves to make them better informed about what is and what is not permitted by city solicitation and loitering laws. Those business owners in the downtown will know better what behavior is not permitted and be personally empowered to take action and to know who to call if help is needed. What we want is a very sustainable communication system operating in the downtown with regard to these issues. We know we have limited police resources in Ann Arbor, but we know that also that a lot can be done with simply better enforcement of existing ordinances. The task force is considering, however, adding ordinance limitations on panhandling within 12 feet of the Ann Arbor District Library, the entrance or exit of public passageways or alleys between Liberty and Washington in the block between Division and State Street, where a lot of complications, even in the wintertime, occur in that particular area. And the alley that runs from Maynard to Liberty Street, also at multiple entries at Liberty Plaza Park, at Liberty and Division. And the task force meets this afternoon, and it will report to the City Council on March 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Ray.
Next, we'll have some reports from task forces. First, the Library Lot RFP Advisory Committee. John?
The committee has not met since our last meeting. However, we do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., 4th floor City Hall Conference Room. And at that point, we will, I understand, letter of intent's complete between Valiant and the city, and at that point, we will sit down, look at the letter of intent, and decide how we're going to move forward.
Okay. Then our committee to discuss a mutually beneficial agreement with the city. Roger?
The committee has not met, although a number of board members have been very active on trying to move this agreement forward. Our attorney, Jerry Lax, along with Susan, and the members of our board who are attorneys, this would be Bob and Joan and Gary here, have met and drafted a new contract. The feeling was that the current contract would have to be amended.
Parking contract.
Parking contract, thank you, Russ. Parking contract would have to be amended so extensively that it made sense to come up with a new contract. So they have drafted that contract, proposed contract. We are going to be meeting next Monday at 8:30 a.m. in this office to go over it with the members of council from the Mutually Beneficial Committee, and we'll be emailing that out to everyone this afternoon, I believe. We've also drafted a proposed agreement concerning the DDA handling the development process of the city-owned surface parking lots in the DDA area, which we'll also be going over with the council members of the Mutually Beneficial Committee on Monday. And lastly, we've also come up with, as part of the parking agreement, we've also come up with a revised parking area map that would be attached to that parking agreement. So essentially, I think with the help of a number of board members, we've gotten to a point where we have a concrete document that we are ready to discuss with council, and I think it certainly reflects the feeling of the board from the retreat and all the discussions we've had over the last year and a half, I guess it is now. So I'll have a more extensive report next month.
Thank you. We'll have next approval of our minutes. The minutes are attached to the agenda. Does anyone, well, first of all, would anyone like to move approval of the minutes? Second. Any questions or additions, changes to the minutes? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Our subcommittee reports, we'll start with bricks and money. So, which one shall we start with? Did you guys flip a coin? Or,
I guess John's saying I should go first.
Okay, we'll start with Roger. You have the bulk.
Okay. Let's see. On page 6, I believe, for your packet, we have the monthly parking report. Overall, our revenues were just about flat from the previous year. They're down less than 0.5%. Hourly counts were down about 4%. If you note on the very right-hand side, there are explanations of why particular structures or parking lots are down somewhat. The extenuating circumstances. Overall, though, the numbers are pretty strong. We continue to have strong usage throughout the system. It's certainly not growing at the moment, but it's certainly not declining in any noticeable way either. And again, a few things. Less construction going on has affected the Liberty Square structure, as well as the number of meter bags we've been selling. Those are the main things. So, are there any questions? Okay. All right. Next, On page 7, there's a resolution to authorize the 2010 year-end management incentive for public parking for management of DDA parking facilities. And I would like to move this resolution to the committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. As you probably know, we pay Republic Parking. We have a contract with Republic Parking to manage the parking system. They do that on a fee basis. There's a $50,000 or $150,000 a year fixed management fee, and then a management incentive of up to $50,000 a year based on a number of measurable criteria. And if you go to page 8, there's a summary of what the criteria are and how they've done this year. We do the customer surveys, which again show, as they typically do, between satisfactory and excellent are almost all of the survey comes in. We get a very strong customer feedback, positive feedback on the operation of the parking system. Further, Republic Parking came in under budget on their operating expenses this year, and they put quite a bit of effort into identifying times of the year when, times of the day and week when the revenue brought in didn't justify the labor expense used to bring that in, and made adjustments and end up what we'll probably save us approximately $200,000 a year in operating costs. We also have an independent inspector, inspect for cleanliness and general maintenance, and his rating was 93.7%, extremely high. Dead ticket average was a little higher than it was the previous year, but certainly below our target of 1.75%. And on page 9, there's just a summary of what they have, things they have done this year. I emphasize particularly the saving of the labor costs, and we've put in a new way of handling, expedited handling of parking structures during special events, so we can get people in and out of the structures more quickly. Did an early bird pilot program, as well as the ongoing parking demand management technology that is a big part of what they're doing is to put new technology in place so we can manage the parking system in a demand management way. So overall, we are extremely satisfied with the job they're doing, and we would like, the staff and our committee would like to recommend that the management incentive this year be $45,000 of the possible $50,000 incentive.
I got a question.
Sure.
This isn't directly about this resolution, but it comes to mind that the new parking agreement, proposed parking agreement, will there be any substantial impact on the public or any factors in that would change?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, no. Okay. I mean, we currently have a contract with the city. The proposed changes don't really have anything to do with operational other than potential hours of operation. And the hours of operation would probably only be in meters, so it probably, don't really, off the top of my head, I can't really come up with anything that I think would, in that contract, that would affect our contract with the Republic.
Okay, I just wanted to check to see if there was anything that might be some leakage on. Okay, thanks.
Keith?
Do you know how many surveys this represents? I ask only because there is a skew downward certainly in it, that if we're talking 50 or 60 people, could easily be within the range of just the chance where it's maybe about 4,000 surveys. 4,000 surveys?
Mm-hmm. And I think this year, if I remember correct,
I mean, it's still,
we had a higher non-response rate.
Right,
Yeah,
higher
that's what most of
non-response
that
rate.
Yeah.
And it's obviously still, as you say, the good to excellent is,
Yeah, the
where most of them
non-responsive
are.
went
But the
up.
excellent definitely went down, and the poor edged up a little bit.
Yeah.
But as a share of the total that actually responded, the excellent is about the same.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah,
If you pull out the non-responsive and then redo it proportionally, it's about 25%,
Right.
either way.
That was because we had 20% non-response instead of 12% the previous year. The overall percentages are going to be lower. We could probably sit and recalculate those with non-responses out of it, which would, I think, show up, as Gary pointed out, pretty much even with the previous year.
Russ?
One of the highlights is the $5 prepaid parking, and not everyone considers that a highlight.
Yeah. This is one, as you well know, when there are major performing arts events in the State Street area, the number of vehicles that want to get in and out in a very short period of time is a challenge for whatever system we use. And I understand your concerns. We're working to address those.
Any other questions about the resolution? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes.
Okay. Next, I believe last, have a resolution to approve the DDA budget for fiscal year 11-12 and fiscal year 12-13. And I'd like to move the resolution.
I will second that motion.
I'll go through the budget. We do have, as the city does, a two-year budget. So we'll be approving a two-year budget for each year, which does not mean that we will not next year come back and adjust the second year of that based on changing factors. So if you look at page 11, each column is the different funds that the DDA manages, and I'll go down each column and just hit the highlights of the proposed budget. Overall, though, we took the information that we received during the DDA retreat on how much money we wanted to spend on grants and all the budget information that we got during that retreat and incorporated in this budget. So this budget is essentially a reflection of that retreat. The difference between that and the 10-year plan, which is what we came up with during the retreat, is additional information we've gotten and additional numbers between the retreat and now that have allowed us to fine-tune things a little bit. But overall, it's as close a reflection to the direction we received at the retreat as we can accurately get. So if we look at TIF, looking at about just a little under $4 million in revenue. We go down to this first column, the 03, 2011, 2012 TIF. Then we have our normal expenses of administrative expenses and professional services, police court building grant that we give every year, money for the energy grant, capital costs, which are the cash we have to put toward the bond of the new underground parking structure and the 5th and Division projects of about $1 million, and the bond payments of about $3 million, which leaves us a deficit for the year of about $1.5 million budgeted, and leaves our ending fund balance at about $1.9 million at the end of this budget year. There is a difference between that and what we were, the fund balance we were expecting of the 10-year plan of about $200,000 actually to the positive. So we anticipate the difference between the 10-year plan we came up with and what we're budgeting right now, about $200,000 better than we were anticipating. Housing, again, we are putting no money into the housing fund this year. We anticipate about $500,000 going to the Avalon Near North project that the board has already approved. And overall, that puts us about $100,000 below what we had put in the 10-year plan. On the parking, we anticipate parking revenues of about 1.6 or about 16 million, I should say. administrative costs of around $500,000. Parking operations, which includes the payments to the city, of about $7.7 million, and I will go over, this is where the significant difference in this and the 10-year plan occurs. Since we do not have at current a new agreement yet with the city, a new parking agreement, what we have put in for the payments to the city is what is required under the current contract, which is approximately $800,000 to the city's street fund and approximately $200,000 that would come from the former Y lot and the 415 West Washington lot. So that's what we are currently obligated under our contract to pay the city. If you go down to the bottom of that column, you'll see there at the very last line is the difference between the 10-year plan and the budget of approximately $1 million. That is the difference between the approximate difference between that payment to the city that we are currently obligated and what the board proposed during its retreat, which was approximately $2.25 million payment to the city. So that's that difference of about $1 million. We're still about $250,000 difference based on numbers we have are a little more refined than they were at the board meeting, at board retreat.
Roger, what are the two figures that are added to the $1 million?
Added to the
The city payments.
Yeah, the city payments.
And the
What
city-
are the two other ones?
They're not broken out.
They're not broken out.
I got you.
There are that a line item on the budget, that $1,010,000 that has an A after it. That's the three. Those are the three current payments that are currently obligated. Approximately $800,000 under the current contract, plus two separate DDA resolutions, giving the city some share of the revenue from the former Y lot and the 415 West Washington lot.
So those are clear obligations.
Those are clear obligations. The contract change that we are proposing would wipe those out and replace it with a strict percentage of the gross take from the parking system. And that's the difference between those. That on that footnote, the difference is about $1.25 million between what we would pay under the new contract versus what we are paying under the current contract.
Okay. That note is very unclear, so just to clarify that, the city payment currently is $1 million approximately,
Correct.
and then you add that number in note A?
Correct. You would
So
add that
it's
number to that.
2.25.
$2.25 million, yes, would be approximately what we would pay under the new contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what percentage is that calculated at?
That is, as the board came up with, 14% of gross revenues in this fiscal year we're looking at. So it would be 14% of about $16 million. Okay? Is everyone clear on what those how those numbers, what they reflect? Again, we did not want to put in what was proposed at the retreat because that isn't a contract yet. We're just strictly going on what we currently are obligated to do.
But that,
I'm sorry, Russ.
oh, I would just suggest that we clarify that note.
Sure.
There's no way that you could read that as to say that that's additive.
Yeah, you're correct. I have the same issue.
So what would you say instead?
In the note,
10-year plan has 2.25.
Total of.
yeah, it has a 10-year plan is a total payment of an estimated
0.26, whatever.
Yeah,
And that's in the document we've been working on.
correct. That is, yeah. I mean, that exact number is not, but that is the
The
calculation that
percentages.
that document would,
Which we estimate that amount to be on a
Yes.
monthly basis or whatever.
yeah, on a
Quarterly basis.
Yeah.
then.
Right. Okay, that's a friendly amendment.
To the foot, yes, amendment to the footnote.
It's just a typographical correction.
Yeah.
Whatever. We're happy.
Yes,
Call that an administrative correction.
administrative correction.
Mayor, you had a question?
My question was that given that the document's being prepared and that the mutually beneficial committee is still meeting, Is it your anticipation that if the numbers, the recommendation from the committee, what's finally decided is modified, then we would address that in the budget?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, we're required now, whenever there is a DDA resolution that
Yes.
would affect the budget, we would bring that forward and amend the budget. So yes, if a contract is signed, we would absolutely bring an amendment to the DDA board to amend the budget.
Very good.
Do you have another question, Bob?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next column, the parking maintenance fund. There's as we annually make a $2 million transfer from the parking fund into the parking maintenance fund. We have our normal professional fees and ongoing maintenance, and then capital costs based on a new revised Carl Walker engineering study of the parking structures. They are recommending approximately $1.5 million of preventive maintenance in the parking structures in this fiscal year, so that's reflected under capital costs.
And that's based on, that's a deferral of some, it would have been a bigger number.
It would have been a bigger number under the previous report. Under this revised report, that's what they're recommending this year. And again, the differences are all in non-time critical issues. So that's the overall budget for this year. Are there questions about this before we take a look at the following year?
Just,
Yeah.
that adjustment would then take the excess of revenues over expenses in the all funds category, which is currently negative $513,000 to a negative $1.75 million.
Correct. Correct. And reduce our fund balance correspondingly to that. Which, again, still keeps our fund balance above the $3 million level that we discussed at the board retreat. Okay. On page 12 is the proposed 2012-2013 budget. Very similar to the previous budget, where TIF, again, is approximately $4 million. The big difference in TIF is we are not anticipating any capital costs. We will have paid all the money that we need, the cash amount toward the bond, overall bond funding that will be required out of the TIF fund. So we're anticipating the TIF being approximately $400,000 negative in 12-13.
Compared to 1.5 million the previous year.
Correct, correct. And again, that difference is cash payments on the two projects.
And it'll keep getting better?
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah, the TIF continues to improve pretty steadily throughout the 10 years. Housing's very much the same as it was, other than we have paid for the Avalon grant on Near North. We are carrying $400,000 for the Village Green Affordable Housing that was approved when we first approved the Village Green project, and we are, at least based on the schedule now, anticipating paying that out in 12 and 13, assuming, of course, that project continues to move forward.
Roger, if I could, just on the housing piece, we traditionally have been putting money into the housing fund at a rate of $200,000 a year. This past 2 years now, has it been, or is it 1 year that we put in $100,000?
I believe it's just 1 year we put in $100,000.
But we haven't been aggressive in spending that and getting affordable units until very recently. So these 2 years, we spend $900,000 on it. So although we're not making contributions to it, we had been accumulating funds in there, and now we have an opportunity to invest and actually get units in the downtown area that are affordable.
Absolutely, yeah. We have carried a balance in that fund of over $1 million for a number of years, and now between the Avalon grant and the Village Green grant, we are going to be down to, I think, about $300,000 when we're through. But yes, we'll have been spending a significant amount of money in these 2 fiscal years toward affordable housing in the downtown.
And sometimes it's harder than you can imagine to actually spend money.
Yes.
Yeah, since we're not really a housing authority, we really have to wait for people to come to us. In the parking fund, we are anticipating revenues of a little under $17.5 million. Again, this would also reflect that the new underground parking structure, Fifth Avenue parking structure, is up and operating and bringing in some revenue. Payments to the city are been handled exactly the same way as they were in the other budget. We were putting in $1,044,000 is what we're contractually agreed to. The additional amount, should the new agreement go in as proposed, and again, footnote A, which I would have the same administrative correction to. The total 10-year plan would then be $2.4 million, or an additional 1.4 over what is currently in the budget.
So that's
And again,
it's an additional 1.4.
It's an additional 1.4.
So again, all funds combined, instead of being a 400,000 plus, would be a 1 million minus.
I'm sorry, say that.
The all funds combined,
Yes.
instead of being a positive 400,000, would be
Negative
approximately
1 million.
negative 1 million.
Yes, correct.
And that would put the fund balance at 3.5? Is that?
I think that, actually, this year, I think we're going to be a little bit low, 3.5. I think we're going to get closer to 3 million on the
That's
fund
over
balance.
3.
Yeah, if we look at our estimated fund balance, we have 4.8 here, and we take it about 2.6. Yeah, we'd be at about roughly 3.2, 3.3 million in our fund balance that fiscal year. So we're a little bit below Joe's ideal 3.5 million, but, you know, within a few $100,000 of that. We did also take, we got recommendations from other committees on grant money and project money that they wanted to spend. Those dollars total came into, I think, about $20,000 more than we had budgeted for those expenses in the retreat. We sort of arbitrarily decided to take $20,000 off of the projected $100,000 for the consultants for the development of the surface parking lots, because we're certainly a ways away from hiring any consultants on that, and we have no idea really what the cost will be. So that seemed to be the best place to take it out of, since it's the one that has the least immediate impact on anything. Okay.
So I'd like to just kind of note on both budgets that even with the adjustment, the parking shows a net positive. So with the additional funds that is part of the 10-year plan in terms of payments that would go to the city, as is reflected in the parking agreement that we're working on, that the parking essentially breaks even in both years, which I think meets an objective for everybody's best interest. Parking funds tend to be historically rather conservatively budgeted.
Yes.
And so I think that speaks well in terms of our ability to meet or more than likely exceed the parking revenue in the 2 years covered by this budget. Generally, revenues are conservatively budgeted, so sometimes in a budget you worry about whether you will actually meet your revenue objectives. Consequently, again, historically, expenses are rather aggressively budgeted, so there's always a high likelihood that we will be able to do better than the budget in terms of expenses and in terms of spending less money than is currently budgeted, which again I think is a prudent kind of practice, but I think it's important for voters and citizens to know that there's a prudent projection of revenue and a similarly prudent projection of expenses. Although the short-term bottom line in these 2 years are negative, and especially strongly negative this first year, the 2011-2012 year, that again we're watching the bottom line in terms of our assets and liabilities. And we fall within the range of acceptable, and that the future projections beyond 2012, 2013 indicate that we will again establish, we will reestablish our ability to increase the fund balances, which means that we're able to address future downtown needs in creative and effective ways.
Yeah, quite correct. Say we're on the fiscal year overall looking at a negative about $500,000 overall deficit in this year, but of that about $3.5 million are cash payments for construction projects downtown, essentially paying down, drawing into our fund balances to do the 2 major projects that we've been working on, the 5th and Division project and the underground parking structure. So that's where $3.5 million is being spent in this budget toward those 2 projects. So it is not that we are running deficits, it is we are using our fund balances to do capital improvements and infrastructure improvements in the downtown. And again, the same thing in the following year. We show about a $400,000 overall positive on the budget, but we're spending about $3 million again on those construction projects in cash. So we have, historically accumulated very large fund balances so we could be able to do major projects, and now we are doing them and we are spending those fund balances, which is what the DDA was formed to do.
Maggie?
Yeah, I think that both Roger and Russ have made some very good points. Anyone looking at the DDA budget needs to look at a longer term. As Roger so delicately put it a while back, this was the pig and the snake.
Snake in the pig.
Pig in the python.
Pig in the python. Pig on the python. That's right. You know we get the
and we know that we've been anticipating this for quite some time, and that the digestion process will pass. The pig will be passed.
The pig is passing as we write on this paper here.
But I think also the point that Russ makes, that historically our expenses have been exaggerated and our incomes have been very prudently forecasted. And something to what Bob said, the TIF revenue is going to go up certainly faster than the 2% that's traditionally been allocated. In fact, between Zaragoza and South Forest, that's $440,000 right there. That'll probably be 2012 or 13 before that hits. But so I'm pretty comfortable with these projections, knowing that the digestion process is underway.
Other Bob.
As the newest member, I really appreciate the work you've done on this. It's been very thoughtful, the whole process of the retreat and how we came out of the 10-year plan. And it seems to me it's very clear, and I appreciate the explanations that Russ and you and the mayor made about where we are, because if someone just picked this up, you would say, well, we're in a deficit, for some of these items, and it's. But it's really part of a much bigger picture, so thank you.
And I want to thank Joe Morehouse. He was put in a huge amount of that. He's the one who creates all these numbers, and we run him through numerous scenarios to come up with the final product. So my compliments to Joe for a lot of hard work and a lot of number crunching to get this information in a very understandable form for everybody.
project. Is there any more you want to, we have also here the 10-year plan stuff that people can just look at.
Yeah, I don't think this is fundamentally, we haven't really altered this since the retreat. Now that, assuming the budget passes, we will go in, amend the 10-year, modify the 10-year plan based on this new budget. And then probably in August or September, when we close the books on the current fiscal year, we will modify it, we will adjust it again with those actual numbers. But the 10-year plan isn't going to be significantly different from, any different from what we looked at the last time, and won't be, we have not updated it because the budget hasn't been approved yet.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. We have a couple of budgets. Thank you, Roger. Is that it for
The money part, I believe, is done, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Once again, you have led us through with great aplomb.
Now, it's like for me to describe what
Yeah.
the pig looks like.
Right.
We had what has been described as the big pour this past weekend. The contractor requested and was able to secure permission from the city to close the 300 block of Division, and also close some other lanes on Division from here on to make this pour happen. They included a dedicated lane for concrete trucks from Huron to our site, and a total of 5,670 cubic yards of concrete was poured, which is the largest concrete pour in town in memory. The pour lasted 37 uninterrupted hours, and went off. It was described to me as boring, which is wonderful. There were a lot of backup systems in place, pumps, etc., that were on site that didn't need to be used, fortunately, and everything went off without a hitch because of a great deal of careful planning. And there were 30 trucks used to deliver the concrete, and they made a total of 570 trips. Division was closed from 5 a.m. Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. And the pour is significant because it allows the contractor, who's actually running out of room on the site, to have some more space to work with. And they've already started laying out steel, etc., taking deliveries and laying them out in the area that was poured. Dewatering along phase 2 continues, and it is our hope that the pumps can be turned completely off by mid-April, and that will be another big milestone. The crane at Division, which has been sitting there for some time, has been removed, and we are hoping to open up all lanes on Division by mid-March. And I'm sure that everybody will be happy when that happens. There will still be periodic lane closings on Division, but not the permanent lane closing that's been taking place. Any questions on the structure?
Was it pour on the east or to the west?
It was off of Division.
So you're
East.
adding a new floor to where the other had been.
This pour actually was strictly a footing pour, which was in the larger section, the phase 2 section.
Okay.
So
the concrete went down on the west side.
Exactly. It was pumped from the east side all the way over what exists now on Dogleg to the middle of the project.
Cool.
And they ran 2 pumps during the day and 1 pump in the evening to try to make things a bit easier on the neighbors on Division, and we appreciate their patience. But again, things went very smoothly.
In general, are we on schedule for the whole project?
Yes. Yes.
I think one thing to point out to everyone too, and really emphasize, is that traditionally in buildings, it's getting up out of the ground is a huge threshold of all the unknowns, and obviously excavation and dewatering and all these things. So in this case, we're not actually accomplishing quite getting up above surface, but it is.
Because we never will.
We never will. We'll never get our heads above water. Is that? Actually, we will get our heads above water because the dewatering is going to come to an end. So I think one important thing, though, is that I think we're very close to that threshold of the large liabilities that are out there.
And the large unknowns.
And the large unknowns.
Once excavation is complete and dewatering is complete and the footings are all poured, then it's basically just building a parking structure. And we're getting very close to that point. And again, once the dewatering is complete, we really feel like we're past that point of unknowns. And
so it's not quite time to celebrate yet, but I do want to congratulate. So I know Susan's had a lot of long, worried hours, and everyone else has worked hard on this. This is a pretty major threshold. So congratulations.
I'm not sure Adrian got any sleep.
Yeah, Adrian. Adrian. So good job.
I'd just also like to comment, this has been a huge amount of work from the staff, Adrian, the contractor, the construction manager, and they scheduled it so it would be on the first weekend of University of Michigan spring break, so there's not a lot of people in town to minimize the impact, and very impressed at the scale of that operation and how well it all came off. I was at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. I counted 18 concrete trucks on division, just lined up, either unloading or lined up to go in and unload. So it was quite an orchestration.
I'd just like to give a personal thanks to John Splitt, who has put in hours and hours and hours as our chair of this Bricks committee, and also he's learned more about construction than he ever wanted to. Thank you, John.
Thank you. The 5th and Division project simply says lights on 5th and Ave were wired mid-February and are in service. I think perhaps I reported that last time. And we will be getting started on that project again soon.
You mean spring is nigh?
Spring is nigh.
Heard it here
It
first.
has to happen eventually. And our, if nobody has any questions, our next committee meetings is Wednesday, March 30th at 11 a.m. right here.
Thank you. Next, our Economic Development Communications Committee. We met and we were still in our education mode. We had really a great meeting this time because we got a lot of information that we've been wanting to hear. We had 2 guests. We had Jennifer Owens from Spark, who's director there of business development. And she talked about kind of what they're focused on, which is emerging technologies and industry sectors as far as business development for this area. The different businesses that she talked about, the focus and the focus of attraction would be for advanced automotive manufacturing, aerospace engineering and manufacturing, clean tech, Homeland Security and Defense, IT and software, life sciences, optics and measurement, and printing and publishing. These have been identified as the businesses that are likely to want to be located here. They're using a program called Mish Again as an outreach to former U of M grads, which sounded like a very logical thing to do with people who have been here before and want to come back here. And there are job postings for area businesses. This is all through Spark. They have an entrepreneur boot camp as part of their business accelerator in Spark, and some business incubators, Spark Central, Spark East, and the MLISC, which is down on South State, which is wet lab space. She talked about what businesses like about downtown is the vibrancy of downtown, the walkability, the different events. And this is someone who hears from a lot of different businesses. And she talked about how it was perceived as safe for late night employees, and there was an eclectic mix of restaurants and entertainment. So we asked, well, what would be a stumbling block? What would make a business not want to locate downtown? One thing that was kind of interesting that I hadn't thought about much before was whenever there's a retail space vacancy. So a business might not want to locate with an office downtown if there are a lot of empty storefronts. That looks, gives sort of a blighted look. But the main thing, and this should be no surprise to anyone that businesses talk about, is, anybody want to venture a guess? Parking, yes.
Shocked.
The idea that their perception that there's a lack of parking. And even though we are doing a lot of things with public transportation and the Get Downtown, the Go Passes, she said, a lot of these businesses, when they talk to them, the people who work there want to drive their little cars downtown, or maybe big cars. So the largest economic development hurdles that she saw was the image of the state, that Michigan now, we might be on the ascendancy, but we still have the image as being a state that's been down economically. And of course the weather, which we can't do anything about. That makes it a little bit difficult to get people to consider this region as opposed to someplace like Austin or Boulder or those kinds of places. Once people are here, she said, they're sold. In other words, if you can get the foot in the door, get people to come here and see what Ann Arbor is like, that makes all the difference. That was a great segue to our other guest, who was Mary Kerr from the Ann Arbor Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, whose goal it is to actually get people here as visitors. The CBB has a $2 million annual budget. They were partially responsible for at least 152 meetings that took place in Ann Arbor in 2010, which translates to $14.6 million in direct spending for this area. So there's a 16-to-1 return on investment for CBB's efforts, plus lots of articles and things that are written. I didn't realize until Mary gave us a presentation about how many people they bring in, travel writers and people like that, who then will go out and spread the word. And as she said, that's the kind of publicity. It's not like you have to spend money on ads. That's the kind of thing that's free publicity. If you get a big article in a travel magazine, that's great. Then, of course, the big thing that they work on in August, the 3 training programs for the plumbers, pipe fitters, and electricians, that brings $12.5 million to the community. CBB has a marketing plan that's updated every 3 years. Their website gets 321,000 unique visitors. The biggest source of their website traffic comes from the city website, a2gov.org. So there are a lot of people who are already kind of thinking about Ann Arbor, going to the city website and then finding where they need to go from there. Now, in contrast to the Spark people who are bringing in businesses that want office space and talking about the parking, what Mary said was they do not hear from the temporary visitors that parking is an issue. So that was interesting, that people who are just coming to visit here don't perceive that the parking is any kind of issue, or also for the big group meetings that people have. So,
and we have to reiterate, the only thing worse than a parking problem is not having a parking problem. Right. So we heard some very interesting things that we're going to continue to discuss in the committee. One of the things was that these very smaller office spaces are very much in demand for these high-tech companies that want to come here. They're small and they're hard to find. So maybe one of the things DDA could do would be to create a central downtown real estate database. That seems to be a need. As far as parking goes, maybe DDA could host a roundtable with the larger downtown companies to understand what the parking needs and perceptions are.
And we can help Spark by creating some sort of comprehensive parking information tool. What we also heard from Mary was from the hotels that are out on the outskirts of the city. They say everybody wants to be downtown. All of their the people who are going, their customers want to be downtown. She talked about a shuttle that would go from the hotels to the downtown, which is kind of interesting because we're always talking about that kind of stuff. And the other thing that that Jennifer Owens talked about, again, a kind of a perception, was about development in Ann Arbor, and the perception is that it takes a long time to ever get anything going development-wise. And so maybe the idea would be that DDA would help create some sort of fast-track permitting and development process. And we've been talking about that, of course, also. Now, as far as communication goes, both the CVB and Spark have very well-developed marketing plans and websites with extensive content. Both have worked to brand Ann Arbor. It doesn't seem to be realistic for the DDA to try to reinvent that or to become the single place to get information about downtown. But we can work with them, kind of fill in the gaps that we see about information about the downtown. And one of the things that we talked about was inserting the CVB's new website, and they have a new kind of a revamped website, and put that website address into all of the wayfinding kiosks. That was one of the things that Mary said, that the people who visit downtown uniformly rave about the wayfinding. And so we could, just on those flat kiosks that we have for directions, put something about put the CVB website on there, which would also give people a lot more information. So that was we had a very information-filled meeting. And we are going to meet again on March 30th at 9 a.m.
No, one quick comment. I was in Colorado last week, and we visited both Colorado Springs and Denver, and it was interesting because I hadn't been to Colorado Springs before, and it's a place that people think of as being a interesting destination, and lots of people like to move there and all those good things, retirees and so forth. And it was a nice city, but I was taken by the fact that there really isn't much happening there. There isn't anywhere near the level that we have of vibrancy on the streets, and they don't seem to have parking problems, you know what I mean? So it really struck me. Now, on the other hand, in Denver, in the Lodo district downtown, there was just a lot happening. It was kind of like, it was sort of like Ann Arbor, sort of plugged down the middle of a larger city. A lot of people on the streets, a lot of young people in activity, and it just struck me that, you know, in what you were saying, that anything we could all do to get the message out, you know, anybody and everybody in a good way that can convey the vibrancy of Ann Arbor, but at the same time that there really is parking and there's public transportation that's effective. And, you know, that it was struck me in what you were saying of sort of how simple it is in a way of what people's concerns are. You know, they want to live someplace that's cool, but they want it to be convenient and be able to get around. You know, it's not rocket science, and we really, especially with the new parking structure going online, you know, it's a wonderful opportunity to play with the fact that we're, you know, it's going to be all the better. So to me, it's an exciting opportunity. You start kind of looking at how to fill those gaps of the other groups and sort of getting the word out as much as anything, especially in sort of beleaguered Michigan. Mm-hmm. You know, to be Ann Arbor's got a great opportunity to be, I think, a really positive place. You know, and kind of an image for Michigan. So I'm excited by it. And I think it's great what the committee's taking on. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, next we have our Transportation Committee over to back over
yep.
you. I'll just ping pong.
There you go. Thanks very much. At our last meeting, our focus was looking at the parking and TDM plan and picking out those pieces to work on in the next year for ongoing projects and for new initiatives, and what funds would be necessary associated with the creation of the budget to do that work. So that was the sort of major portion of our sort of internal work that we did at that meeting. The other piece, which was very interesting, was the presentation about the AATA countywide transit plan. And I want to take this opportunity to really applaud AATA. I thought it was a really good presentation. I thought it was very effective to understand the process and some real sort of meat to it after I think everyone's been kind of waiting for the substance to it. So I think it was terrific. You'll see in your package, page 17, there's a brief information piece that describes the three scenario concept plans that they've described, what they're describing as Lifeline Plus, Accessible County, Smart Growth. And again, I think this is a very good way to approach it because it gives people something to react to. You know, at this point, they've sort of built it up to a point where then they now are throwing back some different scenarios, the direction where things can go in the county. I think it fits perfectly with what we were just talking about, the future prospects for not only downtown Ann Arbor, but also the county. And to me, this is a huge piece of the economic development and for this region is how transportation is going to fit in. So again, any of you who are in touch with people and kind of getting the word out about which approach to take. And it's interesting because part of it is, in maybe simple terms, to me the fundamental question in this is how much to be reactive to transportation needs versus sort of proactive and trying to create a growth development opportunity. It's an interesting debate because there are good cases to be made on both sides. You know, how conservative it would be, how much to invest in what could happen in the future. But you know, for those of us who feel that Ann Arbor and this region would benefit from growth, you know, I think it's a pretty exciting opportunity and a pretty important one to sort of get out there and promote, you know, what's possible. And it affects downtown tremendously because obviously we're at we're sort of at the hub of the county, and so how this transportation concept works out, I think, can have a huge impact on downtown. Is there anything else? Oh, our next meeting, two primary things. The first is talking about basically two-wheel transportation, mopeds, motorcycles. You know, as we've talked about before, I think there are going to be more of them in the days to come. So one thing that we wanted to talk about are, you know, policies surrounding that, which may include, for instance, parking rates and time limits. So those of you who are on the money committee, it'd be wonderful if folks could come along to this meeting and give us input and reactions and so forth to how we might form a plan for two-wheel vehicles. The second thing, and I haven't had a chance to talk yet with Amber about this, but she's working on a notion of actually having maybe some wacky two-wheeled vehicles of some sort that as demonstration, and we're still in the process of trying to figure out how and where to do that, whether it's here or somewhere else. But you know, as a longtime two-wheeled person in various forms, I kind of encourage people to sort of get a sense of what it's like, because, you know, personally I'd like to see people using, you know, smaller two-wheeled vehicles to get around, and it does a lot to help our issues of transportation, environmental issues, all kinds of things. So this is an area that I think, you know, I'd like to see us push forward on, and we'll see what happens for our next meeting, which will be March 9th at 11 a.m. Any questions for me?
I was just going to add to that. I've seen the AATA presentation a number of times, but everybody should try to get an opportunity to see that. They're doing a great thing. I mean, I think there's 30 of them within a couple of months of presentations around the county.
Yeah. So
it's an interesting program. The smart growth scenario is getting overwhelming support among the people that it's presented to. So it's quite an exciting thing that has big benefits. Ann Arbor being, as you say, at the center of all this, bringing people to downtown. I was at a presentation on Monday where the township folks were there, and they said this is where everybody wants to go. This is where they're all heading, was to Ann Arbor. And you will, we should have, I'm trying to remember the timeline, on the inner city study that is going on. That should be ready sometime soon in the next couple of months. And there's various styles that could occur in. And the latest presentation that I saw, and you'll love this, is a gondola system. They would go on towers and lift people over the top of everything. And there's one, I guess, in Portland, and there's quite a few in Europe. And,
Roosevelt Island.
and the key was, can you get the capacity up? And apparently you can. So this avoids a lot of infrastructure on the ground. And you have these towers, and people could go from downtown up to North Campus and back, and floating along over the top of the city on these cables. It was quite an interesting presentation. So, but I throw that out there to say that everything is being looked at.
Actually, one quick thing too to add to that reminds me. In effect, it actually goes beyond the county too, because there, this notion of connections to Canton and other places in the future. When you think of how many people come to Ann Arbor to downtown from outside of the county itself, especially from Wayne County, I think that's another interesting opportunity there to think through getting folks from that area here. More and more Ann Arbor we're becoming more of a regional hub beyond the county.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, never least, our partnerships committee.
Well, and I have a report. I think we also should acknowledge the fact that Roger Frazier has announced that he's the city administrator position, and we appreciate the ability to work with Roger, and still have a couple of months to do that. But anyway, best wishes to Roger as he heads on to a different direction. And also thanks to Bob Gunzel for agreeing to step in. And
I'm retired. You heard it here first.
trick him and it didn't work.
He was paying attention.
The Partnerships Committee has been involved with a very successful energy grant program since 2008. And lots of audits have taken place, and 23 projects have been funded and are saving energy in very effective ways throughout the downtown. We are faced with a budget reality of which we talked about earlier, and so we're scaling back the energy audit program a little bit, but there is money that is allocated in the budget over the next 2 years for this program, and we're at the committee discussing exactly how we want to invest this, whether we want to invest these in the audits that have taken place and do additional audits, or maybe we just need to focus the funds on completing the work that has been identified in the audits that had already been taking place. So we'll be working on that. In recognition of the Energy Saving Grant Program, we were recognized by the on the last page of page 18 of your packet by the Ann Arbor Downtown by the
Energy Commission.
Ann Arbor Energy Commission recognized the Downtown Development Authority for this program, and we thank them very much for that recognition, and look forward to continuing to work with them in partnership as we look to make our downtown incrementally more efficient every year. And if there's any questions about that program, I'd be happy to address them.
Just to point out that they had, in the last resolve clause, encouraged the continuation and the continuing of funding for this program. And as we just saw in our budget, that is the only granting program that that has survived, and that's the $100,000. So indeed, it has scaled back, but it will, in some form, continue on. So, and that was they had encouraged that.
Yep. We appreciate that encouragement.
Yep. I serve on the Energy Commission, and there was a discussion about an understanding that, given the things that are happening in our state, the program may not be able, or there may be periods when it doesn't get the funding that it has in the past, but our the gist of that was that it's important to keep a form of it moving on. And I think also we had a discussion of how the PACE program can help with it as well, and that needs to be explored.
We had talked about that a little bit. We are investigating ways that can work well with this.
It might make up the whole a gap. Could certainly and more.
Right.
One of the things that Dave Conkle talked about when he was here with us was that, and I don't understand all the ins and outs of the PACE program, but that was in many ways more applicable to some of the bigger businesses. And what the beauty of what we have been doing is to help even the tiniest of downtown businesses be able to take advantage of some energy savings.
Yep. And the PACE would really apply, as you say, to somebody who wanted to redo their old, they had a large building, and they wanted to, PACE is right up that for, and we'll probably be the first city with the capability to do it because we have grant money and folks actively working on being the first to use, setting a pattern, developing a procedure for PACE in Michigan.
And in fact, that's one of the things Dave talks about is how when he meets with the people, because we have done the audits, he's able to look at a lot of the different options, so it's PACE, DTE, and the DDA grants, and be able to work with people individually to figure out how best to move forward.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the more popular things that we've ever done. So many different businesses downtown have taken advantage of these energy audits in particular. So
Well, as the Energy Commission recognized in a previous resolution lauding this program, it is also one of the leaders in the nation in actually getting this done and moving the whole issue forward. So it's a trend-setting program as well.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun for us.
All because of the leadership of the Partnerships Committee.
Thank you. And shifting gears, I'll tell you, we do other things too, other than the energy audit. We had Wendy Ramson come and visit, and we talked about how the plans in the past for the A2D2, the character districts, and all the work that's been done in the past would influence the way that we would go forward in looking at surface parking lots. And we spent quite a bit of time going through kind of how we got to where we are today with the plans that are in place. We talked about the different character districts and the work that we're doing with the underground library now, and gave ourselves kind of a little bit of a homework assignment and a work plan for
parking lot.
Yeah. What is
library.
That? Underground, right. And underground library, parking lot. All right, where was I? Anyways, we're going to go through next week in our next meeting. We're going to go through a little bit about what the character district in that particular area, what it calls out for and what it means, and looking at that as not one single lot, but as a distinct area. And along those lines, we'll also have Amy Curris join us, and she's from the Parks, and she's a city parks planner, and we're going to talk about open spaces in the downtown, active open spaces, and what the PROS plan describes as spaces in downtown, and how that defines what the recreational or green or hardscape spaces would be.
Because one of the consistent problems that I think we have as a downtown development authority and as a city is that Ann Arbor ostensibly is a suburban community. So when the citizens think of the downtown, although they think of it as an urban vital center, when you start talking about it, you tend to talk about it as if you are talking about a suburban kind of environment. So the notion of the kind of intensive uses that there are downtowns, the types of parks that are effective downtowns are much different than the kinds of parks that are effective in a suburban area. And because we live in essentially a suburban environment with an unusually vital urban core, it creates this, I think, difficulty on the parts of the citizens about thinking about what are the right kind of attributes for an intense kind of urban environment. That density and street life and activity and noise are positive things in an urban environment, where a lot of times in a suburban environment they're an anathema. They're what you don't want. So it does create this kind of difficulty in talking about what it is that you want in a downtown. So we look forward to these dialogues and invite people to come and talk about that. And again, try to separate what makes an urban downtown area interesting and vital, which is sometimes almost juxtaposed to what you want in a suburban community. I'm done.
Thank you.
Cute downtown.
The pros plan, if you're not aware of it, it is a sort of a catalog of parks properties in one respect. And Ann Arbor, of course, there's very few cities that have a percentage of parkland per person that we do when you take a look at acreage. And what I think is a little different about this version is if you look at the footnotes carefully, they've included, I think for the first time to this degree, the parkland available to downtown that I know I use almost every day, which happens to be owned by the University of Michigan. And I think the recognition there is, wow, we have all these beautiful parks. The city doesn't take care of them. Somebody else is doing that, which is a nice contribution from the university. So you have to look a little bit at the notes. The reason that it wouldn't be included, the parkland that the university maintains isn't included because for purposes of acquiring state grants, you have to just use your own. But that's one of the reasons, one of the nice things about the PROS plan is it enables, and now the Natural Resources Trust Fund has money again that they didn't used to have. So that's there, but there, if you look, you don't even have to look that carefully, you'll note that university properties have been included in a way that does reflect there's actually a fair amount of open space and parkland in the downtown.
Amen. So Sandy and I invite you to join us on Wednesday, March the 9th at 9 a.m. for a partnership committee meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any other DDA business matters anyone wants to raise on the table? None?
I'll just raise one.
Okay.
It was noted that Roger's moving along, and he's excited about it. And I think folks in Lansing are excited to have somebody with his expertise that will be coming up there to help him out in the treasurer's office. But I just want to say we're also very confident that the way the staff has been organized over the last several years and the very competent people that we have in place, I don't think that people will notice any sort of a ripple or change as the process moves forward.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience? Is there anyone from the audience who wants to address us for 4 minutes? Don't see any audience participation people. So in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Well done.
Wow. An hour and 20 with a budget.
With a budget.